Hello, and welcome to Trade and Investment Queensland's Export Insight Series for Queensland exporters. My name is Matthew Andrew. I'm the General Manager of Queensland Operations within Trade and Investment Queensland. We're here today to help Queensland exporters manage risk within their business, and particularly the risk of exporting. Firstly, we're going to hear from Shane Stiles of the Export Council of Australia around a number of export risks, including political risks, exchange rate risks, non-payment risks and quarantine risks. Over to you, Shane.
Thank you, Matthew. It's Nick Alford again, filling in for Shane Stiles. I'm sorry he couldn't be with you, but you get to hear me. What I'm going to talk about today is about export challenges and risks. The reality is there are a number of challenges and risks that you need to be aware of when growing your business into an export market. So it's about the market itself, it's about the buyers, it's about documentation, it's about fees and charges, it's about understanding your risk policies and documentation and risk management, the product and services readiness, contracts, finance, insurance, the credit marine insurance, trade barriers, whether they be tariffs, levies, non-trade tariff barriers and quotas and subsidies, etc. And also understanding that you need to have your IP protected. It's very, very important. So when we start looking at all these sorts of things, you're looking at political and commercial risks in particular. So what happens? Risk of non-payment. You might have a breakout of a pandemic, for instance, which may cause a whole raft of issues that have occurred around the globe. Now is a perfect time to look at what's going on. Are you covered for it? The commercial risks are ownership control. Do you have ownership? Does your party in that next jurisdiction have control over what you're going to be selling into that jurisdiction as well? So you need to understand protection of intellectual property and the copywriting issues. The service quality. Understanding that the quality of service for a particular product, or it might even be a service into that jurisdiction, needs to be of the same standard or even greater sometimes than you're actually providing in your own particular domestic market. How is it going to be serviced? The qualifications of the representatives and the personnel on the ground in that other jurisdiction. Is there any accreditation that you need to have? Are there any recognitions of prior business, or, if you're an accountant, for instance, are your quals recognised in that other jurisdiction? Understanding succession planning. What happens if you change the structure of your business? What happens? It's all the what ifs, and understand that the political stability of the jurisdiction that you're going into means, will you be able to recover your investment if you lose out in that jurisdiction or something happens in that jurisdiction? Financial markets, it's about protecting your financial exposure. Have you got foreign exchange coverage, etc.? Talk to your bank. Ensure that your bank or your financial provider or the transaction that you're going to actually create into that jurisdiction is covered in some way, form or manner. Insurance, marine insurance, insurance in general is a key. You need to speak to your insurance provider to get them to provide that level of cover that you are going to experience or that you need in that particular jurisdiction. It's important that, if you've got something that needs to be quarantined, it might be a box coming in from offshore. This is two ways. Again, has that box been sprayed? Is there an issue with the goods going into that jurisdiction such that you need to have it treated in some way, form or manner? It's understanding what the risk profile is that you have into a jurisdiction. If, for instance, you're going to somewhere like Mozambique and you're saying, my risk is high. Not high risk, high reward. But again, you want to be able to mitigate that risk and utilise the resources that you do have such that you can mitigate those risks and actually look at providing to your organisation and to your people, and in particular your people, if there's a risk politically or whatever in a jurisdiction, that may protect those people. So again, put together a risk profile. The risk profile is about your business. What are you willing to suffer if something does happen? And I think that's become more and more prevalent right now when we've seen in the last 6 to 8 months that the changes in the global transaction of goods has changed and adapted. And have you got security over those goods? Have you got issues going into another jurisdiction? Is it a jurisdiction where the organisation may, or the country or that jurisdiction may put in a barrier to entry? They may say that it's anti-dumping legislation. They may say, so how do you combat that? So ensure that, as I said, your risk profile, understand what happens in a particular jurisdiction, understand the legal realities, understand what your IP protection is, what may happen if you are not a first mover in that jurisdiction, or if that jurisdiction needs you to actually do something else that is outside of what you normally do in your domestic situation. And always remember that you need to be able to protect your domestic market as well. Understand that it's not just your domestic market and your overseas market. They're all integrated. You know, the organisation will rise and fall depending on what happens across the globe, you know, financially, etc. Are you getting paid in US dollars? Are you getting paid in Australian dollars? Are you getting paid in euros? Are you getting paid in ringgit? You know, whatever it might be. And that depends on the jurisdiction that you're going into. And I use that word jurisdiction because jurisdiction really encompasses the legal framework into which you're going. It is not our Australian framework. And remember, it will be different, and you will need to have some sort of protection in those different jurisdictions. So again, it's about understanding what your risk is, understanding how you're going to approach that, and then trying to mitigate that at all points along your export journey. So again, good luck. Research, and I'll say this all the time, research. Utilise the resources that you do have around you. There are organisations that you can talk to and utilise those. So on that basis, again, good luck and good hunting.
Next, we're going to hear from Adam Pearce of Export Finance Australia on developing a risk management matrix. Over to you, Adam.
Thank you. I am Adam Pearce, Associate Director from Export Finance Australia. Today, I'm going to take you through exactly what Export Finance Australia is, also talking about developing an export strategy and some key risks to consider when exporting, and finally finishing on some case studies. So what is Export Finance Australia? Export Finance Australia is the Australian Government Export Credit Agency. We provide commercial facilities to businesses that are looking to export. So we are your export bank of choice. What we do is we're providing solutions to help businesses secure export-related contracts, expand internationally, win export supply chain contracts, and deliver on large offshore projects. Now, we do operate on a commercial basis, so we lend money on the basis that it will be repaid in line with your cash flows. One of the biggest differences that we are is what we do is how we actually lend money, and then we can actually complement your existing bank to provide solutions to enable your business to take on the world. So some of the businesses that we can help are direct exporters, both product and service, export supply chain business. So effectively, if your business is supplying goods or services to a business that is ultimately exporting and you are integral to that export occurring, we can assist you. So it's good to know that you can be 3, 4, 5 links removed from an ultimate export, and we can assist you. We can assist with businesses expanding overseas. So what is happening in the market at the moment is if you're looking to export overseas, you may have to set up a presence over in that country. We can assist with that setup costs and operation costs. We assist businesses from small, medium and large corporates in all sectors and most geographies. What we do look for is a minimum of 2 years trading history and a turnover greater than 250,000. The reason we like to do this is we want to look at businesses that have a track record of delivering a product or service in the similar or same sector that we're looking to finance. Now, we start our financing offering as low as $20,000. And what we do, we look at a position of what we call market gap. So we need to ensure that your financier is unable to assist with providing support. Now, some of the risks to consider when exporting. These range from political risk, legal risk, and operating risk. So when you have a look at the uncertain political environment, which can hamper exports in certain markets, these can affect trade embargoes, civil war, political and violence, affecting your staff in the current country that you're exporting to, and also the businesses that you're exporting to. So it is important to actually understand the risk associated with political risk when you're looking to export, because this could lead to confiscation of property or assets, and deferment of payment or no payment. Legal risks. When you have a look at the legal requirements and processes, these can vary significantly across market to market. So sound legal advice is really worth its pound in flesh. When you have a look at what it does, it actually can have some considerations to the local law, contract law, patent registration, product liability laws, OH&S laws. These all differ and potentially can differ significantly from Australian law. So having an understanding of Australian legal law is one thing, but when you go into an export market, you need to actually understand the legal risks that are associated with that. Now let's have a look at operating risk. Exporters need to be familiar when they're operating in a new market. So effectively, this can be very different to the Australian market. Some important things to look out for are industrial relation policies and practices, permitting rules and import regulations. What is the difference in terms of who applies the free trading agreements in tariff reductions? These are all risks that you need to consider while exporting. Finally, some other key risks to touch on while we're looking about exporting. Environmental risk. Now, natural disasters can occur anywhere in the world and basically are very hard to predict. However, it is important that if you are operating in an area to be aware of the potential risk that your business location is operating in. This could be simply if you're operating in one of the island countries and its volcanic system is erupting, you don't want to be trading there at that time. Contract risks. So differences in contract law between countries, meaning you need to seek sound legal advice, okay? Because this is really important in terms of ensuring that the contract that you're entering into is actually legal, binding, and enforceable. What current law means here in Australia in terms of the other markets that you're going to can vary very differently. So it is important that you seek sound legal advice. One of the other things to take into consideration is ensuring that you have an appreciation for the expectation of doing business with local partners. So understanding the culture and what is important to the local culture. Let's touch on currency risk. So adverse movement in exchange rate risk is inherent risk of doing export. However, this can actually lead to both loss or profit if you get it right or wrong. So I'll ask you the question, are you in the market of actually spotting and moving currency risks? Or are you in the market of providing goods and services? This is really important to actually look at and understand the basis of how you do your operation. One of the ways of mitigating this is actually to trade in Australian dollars or taking out a foreign exchange facility which will allow you to lock in your exchange rate and hedge your current exposure. Some of the things that you can do to manage this risk, it simply comes down to doing your homework or having a very sound business plan. The first thing you need to do is when identifying a new market or a new country is to actually research. Again, do your homework. So EFIC or Export Finance Australia has country profiles. That's a good place to start. And we can assist you with giving some of the political risks that I talked about before. The World Bank publishes a range of individual country risks, and also the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, or otherwise known as DFAT, Trade Investment Queensland, or local business chambers can all assist you with doing your homework. Seek advice. One of the things that I do when I'm lending money is I ask, who are your consultants? Who are you getting advice from? This could be your bankers, your lawyers, insurers, accountants, whoever it may be. But it is important that you seek advice so that you can mitigate the risk that you may encounter in overseas markets. Now, one of the things that I do encourage is to find somebody that actually has dealt in that country before, so you can learn from their experiences. I also say there are no new ways of losing money. So don't be the person that loses the money, be the person that learns from the person that had experience in the market. So do your research here, guys. Another important thing to do is to make an assessment. Now, it is almost impossible to predict the occurrence of certain risk in certain markets, but you need to make a reasonable assessment of the likelihood of this impact in most scenarios and how your business would react. You need to rank them in likelihood of importance and also different tasks to identify critical areas of focus, ensuring that the key management actually know how to manage this situation in country. Develop risk management strategies. As with any other business risk, you need to identify the steps you can take and measure to put in place to avoid or mitigate the risk, or at least minimize the impact. This ensures that the risk management strategy is clear and simple as possible, because you need to ensure that everyone in the business is aware what to do when it is required. Finally, monitor and review. It is important to regularly monitor the risks that have a potential to affect your business in different export markets. Now, this is going to change from time to time, so you need to ensure that this is a fluid document, ensuring that it is regularly updated. Now, I'm just going to finish on a case study. Now, this is a company called SmartCap Technologies. This is both a provider of goods and service. So what they do, SmartCap Technology, they developed real-time driver fatigue monitoring solutions. And what this is a device which fits within a hard hat, a cap, etc. And they actually entered into a market over in Chile. And it took 2 years for them to enter into this contract. The reason they did that is they wanted to do their research. So they did their thorough research on what the market is, the risk associated with it, and they were comfortable with the end market. And it was actually with BHP. So they had synergies here in Australia. They operated them into the contract into Chile, and they were very successful in doing that. This business integrated both the goods, being the actual monitoring fatigue, and the software associated with this technology to ensure that it is providing what the end market user was actually after. So we're here to help. So you got Jana and myself are here to help. My contact details are here. Adam Pearce at exportfinance.gov.au. Please reach out to me should you need any assistance. Well, that concludes my presentation today. Thank you, Matthew. Back to you now.
Thank you, Adam. And that brings us to the end of our presentation today. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact Trade and Investment Queensland. Our contact details should be appearing on your screen now. Thank you and have a great day.